Things are awful. The food's awfully good in West Lafayette, I'm told. So,
Oh man, like you read
the
about.
best restaurants in the world: New York City, San Francisco, West Lafayette. I think that's true.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Are you there?
Are we
Okay. So
getting better? Is this? Are we?
mm,
Did we just? Nah, probably not.
probably not. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Let's
that's
get
good to
let's
go. Go.
let's lay something down. Welcome to the first Boiled Sports Handsome Hour of the 2019 football season. Yes, in front of a live studio audience. No way we can do them anymore, thanks to
Yeah.
studio and Hangouts on Air. Yay! There have been tens and singles of fans clamoring.
Clamoring.
I think that's the word.
Yeah.
It's salivating. I don't know.
Salivating over us.
And much like the Boiled Sports Rocks glasses, we've been promising, and unlike the Rocks glasses, we're following through here.
Exactly.
So let's check our notes.
Well, we really didn't introduce ourselves. I mean, if you just tripped on the podcast, I'm Boiler Dowd.
Oh yeah.
My pal Jay Money is here, and we are the greatest and original podcast duo. We hear there are many others that are trying to come in. Of course, there's the Basketball Beat who tried to be like us, and there still aspiring. And we've just heard there's an Indianapolis Star podcast with Doyle and Schultz, also trying to follow the model that's wildly successful that you guys know. Here at the
guy and one guy with glorious hair.
Exactly.
Same exact model.
Exactly the same model. And so that's I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they really are trying to be us. There's no question about that.
The gray and goatee. I mean, come on, it's
the parallels are
guy
undeniable.
from the Northeast. I mean, basically, I'd say that's likeness infringement or an attempt at such.
Yeah, well, if I'm sure Derek's listening, but we could tell him the lawsuit's coming.
Of course he's listening.
Yeah,
of course he's listening. Yeah. So we're recording this in early August. We're really amazingly only 3 weeks away from the first game of the 2019 season. I know. I started saying it like 2 years ago, right? Like as the season would end, I would start hashtagging "Start the season now."
Yeah.
Because oh man, I was like, I can't wait. And how great was it? Just looking back a little bit over the last year, Purdue had I think arguably right the most exciting players in both basketball and football in the NCAA.
What a fun time, right? I mean, that's the thing. We've been around good Purdue teams that didn't have exceptionally exciting players, meaning like there was a time where I mean, I love Kyle Orton, but Kyle Orton wasn't really a guy that,
wasn't like dynamic.
Right, not like Breeze, right? Wasn't a must-watch guy. And then in basketball, Purdue had at certain times they've had, 5 or 6 role players that made the team really good. This year, this has been a fun and dynamic time. That the thing that now the basketball team figured out, which is you got to win the big games at the right times, right? Winning the big game in the middle of the season is not worth it nearly as much as winning the big game towards the end of the season. So will Purdue's football team make the next step? I put the post on about the breakthrough. I saw yesterday, Dave First called it. They have a garden. I don't know if you saw that. Purdue football has a garden. The nutrition team has planted. It's true. Vegetables around the practice field, and they look glorious. And they said, "Will the harvest come soon?" And the harvest. Oh, I was like, "Yes, I love it."
Yeah. So just preying on your Midwestern sensibilities.
Oh, yeah. My roots as a farmer. You know that.
Will it be a good crop this year? I don't know. Will
the corn get shoulder high by August? I don't know. There's a phrase like that in Indiana. I really don't know what it is. But it's something.
Depends
like
whose shoulders we're talking about.
Exactly. If it's my shoulder height by August, yeah, it's probably not very good corn. But anyway, we are excited. You can tell Jay and I are excited. We're ready to go. We have already we're not going to tell you guys this yet because we don't want to give too much away, but there is a BS Summit already on the books and planned. It is going to happen, which is, I think, very exciting. Last year, we had the lines to get autographs were just ridiculous.
Yeah, we're gonna try to organize that better this year. Yeah. Probably rent out a restaurant or arena, maybe Mackey. I don't know.
Probably Mackey. I mean, you'd have to have something with a lot of seats or just space.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, maybe have the line running up the tunnel or something so people can stay out of the sun because it. Or the snow, depending on what time of year it is. It could be very cold.
What will let on? Exactly.
Now a word from our sponsor. Today's QuickCast is brought to you by Martin Vintage. MartinVintage.com, where if you enter Boiled at checkout, you'll get 20% off.
Wisconsin's not what they've been, probably. They're still going to be Wisconsin, but, I would say they're more it'd be possible to take them down. I think someone will beat them. I think Northwestern can't keep winning 9 or 10 games a year. I don't think that's possible.
I think the funny thing that I think you and I both agree on is that Northwestern has found their stride, right? That program is really, really solid. They know what they are. Fitzgerald's a great coach for that place. It's like a match made in heaven. Chris, on the other hand, I keep waiting for that satellite to fall to earth. I just don't think he's
Manchurian coach.
Right. I've always, everybody who knows me knows that I'm skeptical of the guy. So I think that it started happening last year, and I think it continues this year. They obviously are going to have a great running back again. Taylor's awesome. But I don't know if you've read at all what their wrong-handed QB, and I'm saying wrong-handed not because he's left-handed, but because it always looked like he threw with his incorrect hand
or his hands on backwards or something.
Yes, just horrible throwing motion from Alex Hornibrook. But he's been talking trash about the Wisconsin receivers, which I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd do that, but that's okay. It's his thing. So, but he wasn't that great of a quarterback. I think they probably won't have that great of a quarterback again because that's the Wisconsin way, really. I mean, we can think of, 2 good quarterbacks in the last 20 years?
Right.
I mean,
one was an NC State
one
quarterback.
Not really their quarterback, exactly.
But I think you look at the division, though, and you think, they'll be there. I don't think Nebraska's quite where they think they are yet.
No, the media is so in love, but, I mean –
well,
don't just fall in love with Scott Frost in a tight shirt, guys. I got to tell you, that's
hard not to.
Yeah, he's wonderful looking in his very, very tight suits too. I mean, like almost inappropriate.
You can tell when the lapels sort of buckle.
Exactly.
Right, like that. Maybe it's a little bit tight over your chest.
Maybe you should go to New Taylor. I don't know. But it's a style. Whatever.
You'll like this. So I could go through all these and we could have some fun. But according to what is the wonderful betting app that I'm looking at? The over-unders on wins for the year. This is a fun game to play because it's fun to see where the money is and where the hype is. So Wisconsin's over-under. It's a tough one because it's 8.5. So that's tough to pick, right? Because that's right in line with. You could see it being either way.
Vegas knows what they're doing.
I'd like to bet on Northwestern because they're over-under. I'm sorry, Nebraska because they are also 8.5.
Ooh, I'd go under.
Under.
I'd take that under.
There's a lot of, but then, if you're a Northwestern fan, Northwestern's a 6. So I could see you being a little like, hey, come on now.
I'd go over on that.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what they do, though. Has nobody figured them out? Oh. They always underwhelm you, right? There's never a story at Northwestern. There just isn't. Nope. The story is how consistent and boring they are, and then they just go out there and win 9 games. I mean, I'm not getting fooled again. Northwestern, they're very good. I mean, last year Purdue should have beaten them. Yep. But think about how much went against Purdue in that game, and they still were right there.
Well, Rondell Moore had the game, best game. What was it? Most prolific?
Most all-purpose yards ever by a Purdue player.
Right, in his first
crazy.
Game.
That's
in
crazy.
His first game.
But here's the little trick with Northwestern that we talked about last year too. Get them early. Yep. Get them early in your schedule. Where does Purdue play them in the schedule? Not early, right?
Not early. They don't normally play them early, and last year was the year that they did get to. So it was a little missed opportunity. But last year, right? I mean, we were all there. Purdue starts 0-3. I remember when we were at the Missouri game, which was a ton of fun. But they wound up 0-3. And I remember you saying that night, or maybe it was the night before we went to the game. You said, I don't see how they recover if they lose this game.
Right.
I remember you saying at your house, they're 0-3. because then you'd have to go 6-3 to get to a bowl game against tougher competition than you were currently facing.
Yeah.
And yet
I was wrong a lot last year, though, in a lot of different places. In basketball, remember in December what I said in basketball? I remember.
I do. I remember.
So that's the thing. I remember I'm a moron, so nobody needs to remind me. But I would think that was a logical take, though, right? To say 0-3, you've lost the biggest one. You lost to Eastern Michigan at home. That was the game you had to have. There's no way you get to a bowl without that win, right?
Right. But
instead, they said, no, we're going to go ahead and beat Iowa and Ohio State.
All right. I'll try not to draw any Danny Hope comparisons because that was the Danny Hope playbook right there. That's a Danny Hope 6-6 season right there.
Yes.
Right? The teams they lost to, the teams they beat, that is straight out of his. Whew, man, I mean,
let's keep the comparison going. The recruiting classes are just like Danny Hope. The outward face is just like Danny Hope.
The press conferences are just as respectable as his always were.
But in all seriousness, I got to tell you though, Jay and I have been saying we're going to give you a little behind the scenes look, and we like doing this. But on Instagram, the food these guys are eating is great, man. I'd love to sit down for one meal a week with the football team. I mean, they're getting good stuff. It's not all like, fried whatever, and it's not crap. It looks like it's like gourmet food. It looks like, really, really good stuff. And then on the field, these guys, they look like Supermen. I mean, you look at the change in physique on the Purdue football team, and it's been noted by a couple different people. That's one of the biggest turnarounds by the strength and conditioning people. They've done a great job with this team. And obviously Coach Brom and the staff has done a good job getting bigger bodies in there. But just even the guys that have been around a little bit, which there aren't many of them left really when you look at the roster, but everybody looks the part now, which is great.
Yes.
Brian Newbert at Golden Black used to say you'd pick a player to come off the bus first, right? And he'd say, this is the guy you want to come off the bus first. Now he says it's like a competition between 5 or 6 guys that look like major D1 football.
They look like Division I. Imagine that. Division I football players at a Big Ten school. By the way, if you're curious to see the feed we were talking about, it's Boiler Fuel on Instagram. You can see, give those guys some love because it's a fun follow. Sports dietitians for Purdue Athletics. But what's really hilarious is the picture in their story today is a box of donuts. And it says, off day for Boiler football, perfect time to squeeze in some fun foods. Now, here's a fun fact. You and I will have donuts, and somehow we don't look like Division I football players. I believe if you work out the way they do, you can actually eat a donut now and then, and your body's like, true. All right, I'm fine with that. Plus, they're 20 years old. You could probably eat plastic if you felt like it.
Right. Well, the bad thing is, like, we all get older. One day you really can't afford to just have one donut. It's really not that right. It changes quickly. The what your body needs and wants changes quickly, and you and I both know. It's a bit of a cruel trick, I'd say.
It's like passing the ball to Rondale Moore. You just want more and more of it. You just want it. You can't have just one.
Let me ask you a question, Coach Money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did you hear Coach Brom's comments about Rondale Moore specifically after practice? I think it was 2 days ago. Talking about Rondale's got to keep working at the level that made him great next year. He knows that. Then he backed it up real quick. He knows that, but he also has to be very aware. He's got to keep working. Was that a little bit of a statement saying,
don't get comfortable?
Don't get comfortable, Rondale. We see some tendencies we don't like. I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that because that was an unusual comment to me.
I think it's certainly got to be something like, maybe he's come out of his shell a little bit, and I have a hard time believing that he's going to be anything but what he was. Like, that was a guy last year. It felt like he didn't care about anything but playing good football. Like, in interviews and when he seemed disinterested, he just seemed like he wanted to do great things on the field. Right. And I have a hard time believing that's lagging at all, but maybe they've seen something they don't like. Maybe they've seen him feel a little bit comfortable. Like, I mean, wouldn't you be if you ran over the Big Ten like he did last year as a freshman?
Yes.
My goodness.
I think I've told you for years, if I had 1/10 of the ego stroking that some of these guys have gotten in their lives, I would be a horrible human being. So I respect any of them that have been able to, walk through a doorway and fit their heads through there. Just because, I mean, I'm cocky as it is, and I've done nothing. So I can't imagine coming in as an 18-year-old and
I remember how you were on the basketball court
right
at the
and I
Co-Rec.
couldn't
Imagine if
shoot.
you could dunk the way that Carson Edwards can dunk.
Yeah.
You would never stop.
No,
You'd be
I
like,
would
oh, he's
never
going to
leave
come down the
him.
lane again and dunk on us.
There,
Damn
and
it.
I'd have people following me around with cameras getting another shot of me. Yeah, but it's a different thing. These guys they're quite good, and I read something the other day. Speaking of other receivers in this talented core, that when this core is assembled, Purdue will have a top 5 in America receiving core.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, right? Yes. See, now we're dealing with stuff that's, I mean, I don't want to say it's unprecedented for Purdue to have a great skilled player. It's not. Purdue, we've seen that. You and I have seen that in our life, right? Maybe to see a guy that's this much of a force of nature as a freshman was pretty unusual. But having a receiving core that is that fearsome, right? We begged for that when Tiller was in town, right? We just were like, why don't receivers want to come play for Joe Tiller, right? And generally it was something like, Purdue could get 1 or 2 guys that are really good, and they were good system guys. You could tell, though, they probably weren't pros. Purdue has pros coming in now, right? You're going to have 4 or 5 guys that are going to be NFL players. They're NFL bodies, they're NFL speed, they've got great hands. I mean, Brian Newbert said that Bell may be the best receiver that he's covered. Is either Newbert or Dienert who said that. That's pretty big talk. I think it was Newbert because of the fact that he's covered for Purdue for so long, and more is coming. That's the thing that's crazy. Not just Rondale Moore, but more people, more human beings, and Marcellus Moore as well. So,
do you think how much chatter? Let's just cut to some of the fun now. How much chatter about the Heisman will Rondale Moore generate this year? Besides, not from you.
Okay, not from just me. No, that's yeah. Because here's the thing: the season has to start off a certain way for the chatter to get louder quickly. That's the first thing, right? So I think for me, you can't stub your toe and lose to Nevada, for instance, right? Because then you get ruled out for weeks at a time. Then you have to earn your way back into the limelight. The big game to me, like there are a couple games that are super important, like 50-50 games to me when I look at the schedule. One of those is TCU. I think that's an absolutely important 50-50 game that get that one, and you have set the season in the right trajectory. Obviously, Minnesota, you owe Minnesota one, and Nebraska. Those 3 games, right?
Yes.
I think those 3 games define the level of success. I think this team is a 7 or 8 win team. I've been saying that since last spring. I think I've been specific, or I've been consistent on that and specific. But those 3 games though, because those are all teams that are similar competition level, especially right now. TCU might be rebuilding, but let's not forget. My brother reminded me last night. That's a TCU team that won a bowl game 10-7. In 2018. They won a bowl game 10-7.
Did Purdue win a bowl game last year, or did one happen?
I don't think they went to one. I don't remember anything about bowl games with Purdue. So, the season ended, and they just I don't think anything happened. I think they gave their uniforms back to the equipment room, and I think that was it. Like, yeah, I think.
I remember instead of that, we all just went and hung out in Louisville. I think we just all a group of us just went and what city were we in?
Nashville, I think, which was
Nashville.
Weird. Yeah, we all got.
I'm mixing up. Louisville was a happier time for a little while.
Louisville was a very happy time
for a little while.
Nashville, though. Whew, I think that's the funny thing about that bowl game in Nashville. I have some very all-in Jeff Brom guys around me. Okay, like friends that are just absolutely. Boiler's son, who's the guest post writer. Holy moly, is he all in? Okay, and. Gosh, he acts like that didn't happen, and he was there, right?
Well, he was there until he was on I-65 pretty quickly, but
he beat the traffic, which you and I did not. I mean, that's the thing. We both hung way too long, and we knew that game was dead in the water.
Ooh, early. First quarter? Yes. Wasn't it 28-7 in the first quarter?
Yeah, and it was like, so the funny thing is you talk to somebody, the most gold-colored glasses Boilermaker that I've talked to said, man, if you make some of those interceptions, get different game. And I'm like, I got to tell you, I don't remember their quarterback missing too many passes at all, right? In fact, it was like they could do whatever they wanted versus Purdue. They could pass, they could run. It was like old school Danny Hope or Daryl Hazel football, right? Where you're just like, you're not a speed bump out there.
Well, you know what that reminds me of? I remember you saying when we left there, you said, if I'm Babinski, I call Auburn and I say, let's get this on the schedule. Let's play against it. And you know what's funny? You know, they schedule out so far. Mm-hmm. I know someone here who's a big East guy, and he said UConn. You know, UConn's moving basketball back to the Big East, and he thinks they're going to fold the football program because who are they going to play? So my point is, I think UConn's on the schedule for next year. Hey, open date, Auburn. Rondell Moore as a junior.
I'd love it. I told you it would not go that way again. I don't think Jeff Brom has that in him to roll over and die twice. I just don't think. I didn't think he had to do it once, but that was, boy, I don't know what the deal. I would love to hear someone give me a real.
Well, he got asked about that in one of the first practices, and he didn't say much about it. He just was like, "Yeah, that was a bad day."
And he said he also did. I've heard him say, "I've watched a lot of film from that game. It took me a couple weeks to get into it, but I started watching film, and we did a lot wrong there, and that's good." And he said he did a lot wrong. That's what I love about this guy.
Oh, he takes responsibility. He does it a little different from some of the past coaches.
Indeed. So it's refreshing.
So
how do you feel right now? I've told you we're not getting into predicto range of detail right now, but 7 or 8 wins is what I think. Can you give me your general idea of
every year? Every year I'm going to say it till it happens.
10 wins again.
Well, what's funny is I've read some things that assess this schedule as being really, really tough, and I don't think it's easy, but I mean, I don't know. Nevada, if you've got Nevada, Vanderbilt, TCU, Minnesota, that's your start. Now, yeah, you could lose any of them. That's one of the things I read said. You could be looking at an 0-4 start. I was like, they're not going to be 0-4. Now, I wouldn't have said they'd be 0-3 last year, but they're not going to lose the first 4 games. They're just not. There's no way. Minnesota, if nothing else, I feel like you said, Brom doesn't let that kind of stuff happen twice, and they got smoked last year. Yeah. And Minnesota has to know that the comeuppance is on its way. They have to know that because they even Fleck knew they weren't that much better of a team than Purdue to do what they did to them. Yeah. So I think 7-8 wins. I think though, you have the chance here. Like if you look at the Big Ten schedule, Minnesota at Penn State, Maryland, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern. That's the order. I think this year there's more of a chance that we'll get in November saying, wow, Purdue could win the division. Purdue's within because second to last game of the season is at Wisconsin. That could theoretically be it for the division.
Yeah,
right?
It's crazy.
And I do think so. When you ask what I'm thinking, I think your 7-8 wins is probably pretty accurate. I actually think though that I think they can and should compete for the West this year because
you're like 7 to 13 wins is what you're thinking.
Well, right. Range. I mean, you get more games. I think if you go to the Big Ten title game, and I may or may not have bet on that to happen.
Right. So 14 or 15 wins maybe is what you're thinking. Really, when I get right down to
it. No, I don't think I'm crazy to say they can compete for the West. I don't think I'm crazy.
You're not.
And they should.
Think it's going to be a super fun West. That's the thing. I mean, it's like what you were hinting at earlier. That there are a lot of teams that could win this division. I think that's what I've been listening to national college football radio on Sirius XM, and a lot of people that don't love the Big Ten are just excited to see how these games play out in the Big Ten because it's a fun division where you've got a lot of cool storylines, a lot of things people want to see, right? People really want to see Scott Frost do what he did at Central Florida. Yeah. And people want to see Rondell Moore play, and they want to see if Jeff Brom has trickery up his sleeve every single game. That's fun stuff. By the way, this was just pointed out to me. Maybe you remember this. Last year, South Florida was 7-0 and finished the season 7-6.
Is that bad?
Well, it's like, it's not good, right? So
I remember when Ron Zook did
the whole thing. When you look at Purdue's schedule and you say, let's pretend for a second they start 4-0, which is a great scenario. Anytime you can start with that much of a running
start. It's game day at Penn State, October 5th. Whew. If Purdue and Penn State are both 4-0, I bet you it is. Anyway, go on. Let's say they start 4-0.
But to me, the schedule gets pretty difficult after that 5th or after that 4th game, obviously. So, but to start 4-0 or 4-0, that's a really, really good way to start. What are your do you think 4-0 is a high possibility?
Yes.
Okay.
3 of them are at home.
Mm-hmm.
Your one road game in there is at Nevada, which they must win. That to me, that feels a little bit. I know it's on the road. I know it's not Eastern Michigan, but these guys, he's got to be reminding them not only of how they ended last season, but how they began last season. He's got to be saying, guys, we made this so hard on ourselves. Don't do that again. Right. Do you hear the thunder over here?
I do. I did.
That was Purdue. Just bring in the thunder. Do you hear me?
Bring in the thunder.
I should have worked that up better and just had it just
thunder. Now you're gonna get it.
So I think a 4-0 start is. What did you say? Is it a high likelihood? I don't know. I like our chances at it. 2 night games, excitement on the road at Nevada at night. Saturday, September 14th, TCU at night. TBA on the Minnesota time. That could also be a night game. It's kicking off the Big Ten season. That could be. But I
never liked the Big Ten kicking off the first game. We've had that happen a couple times in the last decade. I hate it.
Why?
I just don't like that. To me, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. One, you could say, okay, you got to have your chin strap buckled right away and be ready to play. But the other way is, okay, you don't have any tune-up at all, right?
You mean starting the season that way?
Yes, like
last year.
So this year you've got, to me, this season is very well designed, I would say, because Nevada is very, very winnable. Vanderbilt also winnable, but they were a 6-win team last year, right? Yeah. And then you got TCU, who they have the potential to me every season to be a 9 or 10-win team, just because their defense is always great, and that defense will be a great test for Purdue's offense and for their skill. The big question, the biggest question on the field right now for this team is how that offensive line can gel quickly, right? Obviously, there's some other parts where you're just kind of like, you got some youth here. Right. But that offensive line is extremely important, especially with Sindelar and his confidence. If he can get confident early, we could have really a ton of fun. And that's what I keep saying. I'm like, man, big arm, big potential. We've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst. Now, can he start right out of the chute playing really well and give some of those guys time to mature? Can he throw the ball so effectively that defenses start having to, bring in an extra corner because Purdue's spreading around, and then Fuller goes off, right?
And the answer is yes, he can. We've seen him do it. And he's had a year now to stew, so to speak, about his poor start to last season. And I think a cerebral guy like that, he's not ever struck me as the kind of guy who it ruins him or it affects him and he doesn't recover from it. Like, he didn't play great at times that year. And then when he was needed and the job was clearly his, even with a blown out knee, he played fantastically. So I think every fan knows it. I think everybody's in his corner. I think the coaches know it. The players know it. Everybody knows he can be that guy. And he didn't start last year well. And let's not forget, if Blau doesn't come in and throw for 580 yards against Missouri, the job may go back to Sindelar the following week. Like, I don't think Blau had an amazing senior year. It was a great finisher for his college career in all the places it went. And now that guy's on the practice squad with Cleveland and, may end up getting an NFL job at least. And man, that'd be a great story. But no, I think I agree with you. I think having Sindelar feels like it's like a weird little win. Like,
I think it's great. And I think that's the media doesn't get it, right? They say, Purdue lost their starting quarterback. Those are the people that have not done the research, obviously, right? This is not hard to figure out. But I agree. I think it's a great win. I think this, let's keep in mind, okay? And you could say this is an indictment on Brom, which I have a hard time indicting him about quarterbacks, period, okay? But remember last year, his choice clearly was Sindelar, right?
Yes.
Because he believes in Sindelar's ability to throw the ball. He hated that Blau didn't throw the ball hard all the time. I don't know if you guys can read lips, but I can enough. When Brom was talking to Blau, I could see what he was saying. Throw the stinking ball.
Yes.
Right? He wanted Blau to rear back and throw it hard, right? So he's got a guy now with a big arm, and that'll be fun. So here, go ahead.
Well, I got one little trivia. I meant to tell you this offline. I don't think I did. Or maybe I did. Do you know what the difference was for Blau when he suddenly turned it on? Do you know what change he made? I found this out through a source. I'm not going to reveal the source.
Well, I'm going to go with something that I know. Well, he changed undergarments. Maybe
stop wearing them.
Yeah.
No, he was playing football without any eyewear, any contact lenses, and apparently his mom said to him, "Just wear your damn contact lenses," and he did. Nope, he did, and all of a sudden he could see everything so much better. Now, but do you remember the unbelievable change? I mean, how accurate he became, how he saw the field so clearly. Think about that Missouri game, how many unbelievable throws he made.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's what I was told. Yeah. I was told that he was like, oh, all right. And he did it. And he was like, wow, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I do this?
Right. No kidding. So he's another smart guy, too. And that's amazing that I didn't figure that out.
So
that's cool.
Going to leave you probably with that tidbit because we're only going to be able to give you about a handsome half hour today.
Yeah, and what we have a plan to have a couple shorter, handsome hours in the next few weeks.
It's all part of a master plan.
We've got big plans, but one of them I'd like to talk to you about, which is something we never talk about, which is just recruiting. And we can go anywhere with this, and we're going to whet your appetite a little bit because David Blau's brother-in-law just verbaled with the program. That was ridiculously exciting for me. I brought LBD in. I start doing this thing. He's heard me. I start like giggling when I'm like, Alabama, Notre Dame. I just laugh. I'm like, what is happening? It just keeps happening. They keep getting guys over these world beater programs. So
that started happening with Rondell Moore. When they got him, I remember saying, this is the world we live in now. This is Purdue. Purdue is doing that. They're taking guys away from programs like Ohio State, Alabama. And you always get someone who's like, well, you knew he would be on the, fourth on the depth. Well, okay. Well, he still took him away. They usually get whoever they want.
Right.
And Purdue got him.
And for people to make the argument that Bell or Moore or Wright would be fourth on the depth chart, these big programs, they're just flat out wrong. Because everything I read says these guys got on campus and everybody's like, yep, they're playing. These guys are, these are real big time talents. And, this is a fun period. So we'll give you a little preview. That's going to happen, but this is going to be a little shorter, handsome hour. We really appreciate you tuning in.
And we should thank our sponsor, our ongoing friends at Martin Vintage. Go to martinvintage.com. If you enter Boiled at checkout, you will get 20% off, right?
Yep.
20%. My gosh, I'm out of practice.
No, that's okay. And the thing that's great about our friends at Martin Vintage is the Purdue family running a business, trying to get that thing off the ground. You can help them get off the ground by ordering some of I think they have new designs coming this fall, which is always exciting.
Time to get ready. I got 3 weeks.
But if you love the BoiledSports.com team, you probably love Martin Vintage already. But if you haven't bought a Martin Vintage shirt, give them a run. It's good stuff. And really, I don't want to say it's a cause, but it's something close to our heart, if nothing else. I love entrepreneurial spirits, and I love it when people are trying to do something new, and these guys are doing that. So martinvintage.com, enter Boiled at checkout.
We'll be back soon with another handsome hour and many quick casts along the way. We're excited to be back. Welcome back to Purdue football and to Boiled Sports.
Love you guys. Good night.